Hello, amazing people. One of the reasons why your ventilation is not looking like a pro or unrealistic is because you've been making use of the wrong ventilation pattern at the right time. Yes, I know you've been wondering what ventilation pattern you can use to achieve a free-part wig, where you want to style it in a zigzag pattern, a C-cut, or a straight cut. And right here in this video, I'll be teaching you on the ventilation patterns to make use of at the right time. And when it comes to ventilation, factors like number of direction, number of strands, and ventilation pattern are key factors in ventilation. Yes, you can ventilate like a pro even if you are a beginner. One should make use of the right ventilation methods. And always bear in mind, the right ventilation pattern plus right number of hair strands gives you a realistic and flawless ventilation. So we'll be starting with the vertical or horizontal method. That's ventilate one line, skip the next, ventilate one hole, skip the next. So we'll be taking 2 to 3 strands of hair. I usually advise about 2 to 4 strands of hair. So you ventilate one hole, skip the next hole, you ventilate on the next, you'll be skipping this hole and ventilating on this next hole. And this is the vertical horizontal pattern. I'll be ventilating on a straight line, just like you're trying to form a queue that's on a straight line. You keep going on a straight line, and you'll be you skip this and ventilate on this. So I'll be skipping this line and ventilating on the next line on the same O, and this makes it vertical horizontal because when you look at it, it's going horizontal, and when you also look at it, it's going vertical. And this method is very good or applicable for your braids, cornrows, Ghana weaving, and it is suitable for braids, your cornrows, because it is very easy to part. It gives you the straight, especially when you want to have a square or box braid. It gives you the straight line. It is very easy to part the wig. But this is not suitable for your frontal, your closures, and your follies. Why? Because the hair does not grow in a straight line. This gives a straight pattern, and when you come closer, it's looking like the hair is growing in a straight line. And when you look at the scalp does not grow in a straight line. And that is why I don't advise this pattern. But when it comes to braid, this is a suitable pattern, as you can see. So this is what it looks like. You can see they are moving in a straight and horizontal pattern at the same time. So this is very suitable. And if you want to have a realistic box braid using this pattern, just make sure the number of strands you're going in with is about 2 to 4 strands of hair. Please don't go beyond that unless it wouldn't look realistic. And this is what it looks like. You can see the patterns are moving in a straight line, and you can still see the next O. You can still see the O's of the other lace, because this doesn't make it realistic. And this is what it looks like. Like I said, it is easy to part. As you can see, it is very easy to part or achieve a straight line using this method. Yeah, you can see the lines are so easy to part or achieve. This method, when you use this for your box braid, you're good to go. But please, I don't advise it for a frontal closure. And here's a video of this pattern I used. Look at what it looks like. You can see the knots are beautiful. I made use of 2 to 4 strands of hair, and this is the result when you make use of the vertical horizontal pattern. So, and this is a summary of what they are used for, what's suitable for the reasons why it's not suitable. And now let's move to the next one, vertical diagonal method. This is similar to vertical horizontal pattern, but in this pattern, I'll also be ventilating. Ventilate one hole, skip the next. So skip a line, ventilate one hole, like I said, skip the next. So I'll also be going in a straight pattern, like you can see, but on the next line, I'll be skipping this particular line and moving to the next line. But I will be ventilating on the same line. I'll be ventilating on this line above the other line. That is, whatever next ventilation I'll be ventilating is in between the 2 ventilated holes, while there's still a line gap between them. So I'll be ventilating one hole, skip the next, but the next line I'll be ventilating is in between. I hope you understand. And also, so this pattern, this particular diagonal vertical method, can be used for also your box braids, your cornrows, your Ghana weaving. You can make it of it for a frontal, you can make it of it for a closure. For cornrows for your frontal. And this pattern can, when you make use of this pattern for your frontal, your closures, it can help you achieve a free part wig, whereby you can style it in a zigzag, horizontal pattern, or your C-curved pattern. But this, you can also use this for a box braid, like I mentioned. It makes your box braid more realistic. For me, I think I prefer this pattern for a box braid as compared to the other one, because this tends to fill in the holes after the next one and make it look realistic whenever someone comes closer to you. And so you keep ventilate one hole, you keep the next, keep going. When you look at this, is look at it that is going in a vertical and also a diagonal pattern. When you take close look at it, also remember to go in with 2 to 4 strands of hair. And this is what this pattern looks like at the end. As you can see, it's quite different, though it moves in a straight line. It's just like the other one too. So this pattern is very good. I think I can try this pattern for a frontal closure if you want to make use of it. So you can see what this looks like when you try to part it. This can also give a free pattern, but wouldn't give it to give a free part like the first one, that is the vertical horizontal. And you can see the difference between them. And let me show you a video of this pattern I made. This is for my knotless braid, and this is for my closure. As you can see, I was able to part it in a freestyle pattern. So let's move to the next one, which is the horizontal method. From the word horizontal, you are ventilating on the horizontal pattern on a straight line, but in a horizontal pattern. Also taking one hole, skip the next, take one hole, ventilate one hole, skip the next. Please don't forget, I said key factors when it comes to ventilation includes your number of strands, types of knots, and your ventilation pattern. So please always remember to go in with about 2 to 4 strands of air when it comes to ventilation. So I keep going in a horizontal pattern. Now I'll be skipping one. In this, I'll be skipping just a hole in between them, and I'll be ventilating the next one in between the 2 holes. As you can see, in between those 2 ventilated holes, I'll ventilate the next one while I'm still skipping one hole in between them. So for me, this just keeps a hole. It doesn't necessarily skip a line. And I love this pattern of ventilation also, especially when it comes to my front, when it comes to your frontal, your closure. Like, this gives you a realistic frontal or closure, because it is feeling when you are done ventilating, it doesn't really create that space for the next hole to show, because you're filled in between. And when you use this pattern for your frontal ventilate or your closure, you can achieve any type of pattern you want on your wig, whether it's zigzag, a curved, or a straight, any pattern you want, any freestyle pattern you want to. And you can see this is what it looks like when you use this pattern. You can see you can achieve any pattern you want on this. So I usually advise this method for your frontal and your closure. You can also use this for your braid, but though you really have this nice pattern when you want to try to section it, you don't have the straight sectioning as compared to horizontal, and vertical diagonal. So this method is very suitable, and I love this method when you make use of it. So let's move to the next method, diagonal slanted. This is my best method when it comes to ventilation, especially for a frontal or closure. Like, this method is going to give you a very realistic hairline, especially when you take in the key factors I mentioned: the number of strands of hair, your type of knotting, and your pattern. This pattern with a number of strands of hair, 2 to 4 strands of hair, most especially I use 2 to 3 strands of hair when it comes to this, to give you a perfect or flawless hairline or realistic ventilation. This pattern, you're moving in a diagonal pattern, but it is kind of slanted, just as if you're trying to climb a staircase. So you can see I'm ventilating one hole, skip the next line, and ventilate on the other hole, skip the next hole, and ventilate on the other hole. That is in a slanted, diagonal slanted pattern, as you can see it. Now in between these 2 holes, I'll be skipping one hole between them and ventilating on the next hole between them. As you can see, I skipped one hole, and the hole is the next ventilated hole is in between the both of them. I'll do that. You keep going and you continue that pattern in a diagonal slanted pattern. You ensure consistency as you keep moving. You can also use this pattern for a braid, yeah, but this pattern wouldn't give you the straight line when you want to section your braid, especially when you want to achieve a box braid. You wouldn't get the straight line. But you see, for a frontal, a closure, anything you want, a full closure, a 360 closure, this will give you a perfect or realistic look. I love this method so much. Like, I don't make use of any other method than this when it comes to my frontal closure. And I have a video where I made use of this method so you could see the result, and so you can see what it is looking like. It is filling those holes. You really cannot see the next hole because it's making it look like it is growing from a scalp. This method makes it look like it's growing from a scalp. Can you see this? Can you see? It is looking like it's growing from a scalp as compared to other method. You can see this method, and you can easily section this method in your C-part, your zigzag, your straight pattern. You can freestyle any pattern on this. And as you can see, I'm trying to freestyle. You can see it's looking like it's growing from his cap. As you can see, the knots, they are tiny. Make sure your knots are tiny if you want to achieve a realistic pattern. You can style this any pattern you want. You can see this pattern. You can style this any pattern, and this is what it looks like. It's so beautiful. I can advise this pattern. You can't go wrong with this pattern when it comes to frontal or your closure. I can assure you, you can't go wrong with this pattern. So I'm done. So let me show you a video on this, when I made use of this pattern. Yeah, this is the video of the frontal and the result. You can see the knots are tiny and it is looking so realistic. Even when I put it on, it is looking so realistic. And this is a synthetic wig, no one is going to know. And here what is suitable, a summary of it. So the next pattern we'll be going or looking at is the diagonal pattern. In this pattern, you are going diagonally. Now this pattern is a diagonal pattern, just like when you're trying to draw a diagonal pattern, you're moving in a diagonal pattern, not like the other one that was diagonally slanted. But this is a diagonal pattern. You're also skipping this one. You're skipping a line and a hole at the same time. So you're skipping one low, ventilate the next one, then in between you skip another hole, ventilate the next one, and now in between this next line is in between the next hole is a line. And this method, I usually advise it for it. I can advise this method for a T frontal wig, your closure. That is, if you just want to have a center closure, yeah, you don't want a free pattern, because this is moving in a particular direction already. It has given a direction. Unlike your T part, sometimes you don't need to style it. It's already giving that particular pattern. So I really don't advise this method for a braid. This method is not advisable for a braid. I really don't also advise it for a frontal that you want to freestyle, unless it is a T frontal or a closure that you just want a center pattern. You don't want to style it in any other pattern. And this method is good for T closure, like I said, a T part closure and a normal closure. And this method, make sure you're going with also 2 to 4 strands of hair when you're making use of this method. Don't forget, while you're ventilating one hole, skipping the next, but you are going in a diagonal pattern. You keep going in a diagonal pattern. You ventilate everything in a diagonal pattern. As you can see, it is going diagonally. Now this is the result of when you keep ventilating. This is what it will look like. This is what it will look like. It is still, if you look at it, it's also still going in a vertical pattern. You can still see the next hole in between them, the next hole in a straight line. Here is a video on this pattern I made for my center part closure, my 2x6 and 5x5 closure, and this is what it looks like. And here is a summary of what is suitable for, what is not suitable for, and here are the reasons why it's not suitable. And this is what all the pattern looks like. Now, bearing in mind that, don't forget, a right ventilation pattern plus right number of strands of hair is equal to a flawless and realistic ventilation pattern. Now you can ventilate like a pro with the right pattern and at the right time. I hope you really enjoyed this video, guys, and you have what it takes now to ventilate like a pro. And please don't forget to like, to share, and subscribe to my channel. Love you all.